You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband. I don't mean him, though. I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording, and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. I'm about to have a chat to Sara Bissica. Sara has worked for ANZ for 17 years. She's currently the Commercial Divisional Capability Lead. So Sarah's going to talk to me about her experience of having a serious medical episode after having her neck adjusted by a chiropractor. Now, many people, including myself, have had positive experience with chiropractors, but here's the rub. Take religion. Now, clearly there's some very good, reasonable people who take the tenets of their religion like goodness, kindness, love, compassion, and live decent, wonderful, productive lives. Now, there are also people who take the religious scriptures and turn them into the basis for their dangerous fundamentalist beliefs. The point is, without the existence of the moderate end of religion, the extremists wouldn't exist. So many alt-med practices are the same. There are moderate, sensible chiropractors who treat soft tissue injuries. Then there are chiropractors who are at the dangerous end, who believe that all illnesses are the result of subluxations, which have never been substantiated and remain completely unproven. And these can be apparently resolved by neck and spine manipulations. So on that note, let's listen to Sarah's story. Good morning, Sara. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a beautiful day here in Sydney, is it not? Freezing, but lovely.
Thanks for having me, Annie.
Absolute pleasure. So as I mentioned before, Sara has a very interesting story to tell and we're about to hear it. So what happened to you a few years ago? Do tell us, Sara.
It was October 2021 and ultimately it was the end of that second round of COVID. I had lost a fair bit of weight,
right?
Had set up a home gym, had a 10-kilogram kettlebell that I lifted and sort of, in the wrong manner and hurt my neck.
Right.
It was ongoing for a little period of time.
Good job on the 10-kilo kettlebell, all right? Go you.
That's right.
Very impressive.
Can't do that anymore.
No, I bet you can't.
But basically ended up seeing the GP going, got this neck pain.
Yeah.
Said, see physio and gave some painkillers and whatnot.
Right.
Then I was speaking to a girlfriend and I said, yeah, I've had this pain in my neck. It's really frustrating. She said, oh, go see my chiropractor. Mm-hmm. I said, I've never seen a chiropractor in my life. She said, oh, no, she's really good. She's working from home. She's local. Go and see her. Mm-hmm. And at that point I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. And who didn't like to get out of the house when you were on a 5-kilometre radius span?
Absolutely.
So ended up seeing a chiropractor. Mm-hmm. Had manipulation take place in my neck. So that's where they crack your neck and parts of your spine to try and release pain. I've had a few sessions with this chiropractor actually across, it was 2 weeks. One unfortunate afternoon, 21st of October to be precise, I recall driving to the chiropractor and taking a wrong turn and thinking, oh, where am I going? I've taken a wrong turn and I had to, reroute and head towards her place. When I got back, I ended up going for a walk, which I often would because I was big on my fitness. And I had a shower, got home, came to sit in front of the PC to get a day's work in, and my vision left me. So there I was. I couldn't see. I was freaking out.
So when you say couldn't see, was it just part of one eye or the whole vision or?
No, entire vision had literally gone. So I'm quite blind as it is. I have -6 and -5.75.
Do you mean like short-sighted?
In my glasses. So it felt like I had taken my glasses off, but actually no shapes, nothing. All I could see was light. That's all I could see. It was almost, that's all I remember, seeing light.
And what did you think to yourself at that point?
I was panicking.
Of course.
And all I said was, I can't see. And my husband was in the kitchen at that time.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't see. All I could keep saying was, I can't see.
Right.
And my husband obviously could tell the severity and the panic, called an ambulance.
Oh, my Lord.
By this point in time, I think I was so freaked out that I was lying down. I was quite distraught. And I kept saying, my vision's not coming back. And I had glasses on, but I couldn't see. So I was like, I can't see.
So you get to the hospital.
No, the ambulance get there and check the blood pressure, do some assessments. And they're like, oh, the blood pressure's a bit high. What have you done? I said, I saw a chiropractor today. And then they instantly said, oh, sometimes when you see a chiropractor, it messes with the nerves and you can get funny symptoms. But we'll take you into hospital just to be sure anyway.
Yeah.
So by the time I was wheeled into the hospital, I had started to get my vision back.
Right.
But all of a sudden I felt very weak, like I couldn't stand without being really dizzy.
How
and I remember
frightening.
it was horrible. And I felt really weak. It's the best way I could describe it.
Right.
And in the hospital, the doctors kept coming and doing all those neuro tests that later I found are to check to see if somebody's having a stroke.
Right.
They decided they'd do a CT scan.
Right. Did they at any point suggest you had migraine?
Not that I recall.
Okay.
I think they had just said chiropractors, when they manipulate, can damage nerves in the spine, and that can lead to funny symptoms like losing balance, losing your vision.
Right.
So at that point I thought this is just all part of it, like this is all it is. And the funny thing is in that moment I remember signing with this woman. I had taken her an x-ray and signing a waiver where she said sometimes things can go wrong. And if
Which woman did you sign?
The chiropractor that I had seen.
Right.
And I recall at that point she said it doesn't happen very often, but if you get any weird symptoms, you should take yourself to hospital. But sign, it's very rare. And that moment just replayed for me.
Oh, my God.
Anyway, they take me in for the CT and they're about to administer iodine, which is a contrast, CT contrast. And I said, I'm allergic to CT contrast. And the doctor then the emergency doctor had to make a call and said, she's young. I was 38 at the time.
Yeah.
She's young. She's fit.
Yeah.
She's healthy. It's really unlikely this is a dissection. Just do the scan and see anyway. So they didn't pick up on the fact that I had had a vertebral artery dissection and was actually having a stroke in that moment. They sent me home.
No.
In that week, sorry, get a bit.
Oh, I understand. You okay? It's okay.
No, it's fine.
Oh.
In that week, I remember feeling really unwell.
Yeah.
You know, it was Thursday that the episode had happened, and on Monday my husband went to work and I called in sick, and I don't ever call in sick.
Yeah.
So my boss knew it must have been bad.
Yeah.
And then he got home on the Monday and I remember I could barely stand. I was very dizzy and I'd have these weird episodes of blurriness. And he got home and I said, I'm really scared. Something's not right.
Oh, you poor thing. It's horrible.
And on the Tuesday, I asked him to stay home and he took me to the GP. And we thought maybe it was a virus after all that, like who knows. But when I saw my GP, he said, you're in hospital on Thursday. I think you need to call the hospital back and get an emergency MRI. So I then called around to get the emergency MRI. I won't tell you even in between that time, I was driving my daughter to a birthday party on the weekend, had forgot the present because obviously things had started to leave me, and how dangerous that was.
Yeah, of course.
I was in the car and I remember driving back to pick the present up and said to my husband, I can't drive her to this party. I am not well. And then I was chatting to someone at work on the Tuesday to apologise for the fact that I'd missed the meeting on the Thursday, and I was stuttering my words at this point.
Right.
So I got that emergency MRI booked in on the Thursday. By this point,
so that was the third. So
a week
exactly
later.
a week. Got it. Mm-hmm.
Exactly a week later, I by this point, my functions and impact had completely started to stop. I could not walk.
You couldn't walk?
I could only take a few steps at a time, and then I'd have to stop. The brain and the body I just didn't know what was going on.
You must have been so terrified.
I just couldn't understand what was going on, and I kept thinking this MRI is going to give me answers. And at that point in time, I was like, I have a brain tumor or something is going to, like, they're going to find something. And I went in for the MRI. I just remember being so incredibly fatigued. Fatigue was a really big symptom, and just really out of it, just not quite there. And when they finished the MRI, they came out and they very kindly said to me, take it easy. We're just going to get you to take a seat. And all I remember saying to the radiographer, did you get to the bottom of what this is? I could barely speak at this point as well. I had slowed down my speech. And she said to me, let's just say it's a really good thing that you came in today.
Oh, my goodness me. Oh, my goodness, Sarah. Oh, my goodness.
Lo and behold, the doctor came out and said, I'm Dr. I can't even remember his name. We have found a vertebral artery dissection in a very tricky part of the brain and 2 strokes. And when I heard the word strokes, I said, I'm not going to take in any of this. Can you please get my husband? And then they brought my husband in, and he explained that they could tell the age of the stroke. So the Thursday that I went in with blurry vision was the first stroke, and I had had a subsequent bigger stroke on the Sunday. And so they were what they call cerebellar strokes, very rare type of stroke with a very high mortality rate. So what my husband was learning at that time, because I didn't quite fathom or comprehend any of what was happening to me for a long period of time, was that the artery has 3 layers. It's 3 layers. And the artery had torn 2 layers in and was 1 layer off fully rupturing, which is what they call an aneurysm or a bleed on the brain. And it was the site of the dissection was 1 and a bit centimetres off the brainstem. So the risk that was there immediately and imminently was that it would still rupture. The cause of the strokes was because that artery clotted because of the tears, and part of the blood clots shot off.
Got it.
And got lodged in the cerebellum, causing the strokes.
What happened next?
So admitted to hospital straight away. I remember they took me into emergency, and there was about 8 people in the room. They've pushed my husband out. All I could say is I need water. And I had a woman in the absolute chaos of all of this bring me a stroke pack. To this day, I'll never understand why within 5 minutes of someone who's had a stroke, you get given a stroke pack.
And what's in a stroke pack?
It tells you all about stroke, but I didn't read that pack till I got home.
Funny, of course.
I got home.
You wouldn't have the capacity, right? Classic timing.
It's just, it does make me laugh. But yeah, I was, so they got me into the stroke ward straight after that and said, we need to, because of the complication of the site of where it is, we need to do a brain angio. So I was transported into ICU, taken to Macquarie University Hospital, where the facilities were fantastic. And if I could plug Dr. Brendan Steinfort for anybody who needs a vascular specialist.
You may plug anybody you like that is scientific and a proper medical person.
This man is a genius and very rare what he does. But he went into did the brain angio and basically said, I'm not going to stent. It's too dangerous. Let's just wait and see what happens. So I landed in ICU for about a week while we watched and waited. I had all sorts of episodes in there. And then thereafter, I was moved to the stroke ward where they were rehabbing me to learn how to walk again.
So he has decided to not intervene.
Correct.
Because he thinks that any intervention is going to be too dangerous.
Correct.
And was that a contested – were other doctors contesting that?
I had a phone call from a GP that said you should see someone else for a second opinion because it's very dangerous and you should get it stented. I also had other people try and say, why don't you try natural therapies?
Did you say I tried that? That's what happened to me in the first place.
Well, but I was very, and my husband at that point in time, I was out of it. The reality is I look back on photos and I remember points in time, but I was pretty much not all there.
Yeah.
And we trusted our doctors. So the neurologist that was allocated to us and the vascular, Dr. Brendan Steinfurt, we really trusted them. And so we went with it. And then the hard part started, which was rehab.
So what facility had you lost in terms of your what could you not do?
Yep. So the cerebellum is the balance and coordination center of the brain, which meant that I walked with a massive gait that looked like I had a nappy on. I couldn't walk more than a few steps at a time. It was like there is video actually of me trying to go up a step.
Right.
And you can see my right foot quivering because the brain
the signals.
Sending a signal just wasn't happening. And I was like, why is it doing that? In my mind, I was like, just step up. What's going on? But my leg just sat there quivering. So there was that. Balance was the biggest thing, balance and vision.
So you still were struggling with your vision?
Yeah, it was hard to focus because the muscle in the eye, obviously you lose when your right side impact. The muscle wasn't strong enough, so the eye would sort of go a different – it just was hard to process, go a different direction. So I then spent so it was 2 weeks in total in hospital.
Right.
And then they said – you might need to be admitted as an inpatient. Now,
for rehab.
Right. But they said this stroke has a 1 in 3 chance of 1 in 3 patients with this stroke end up with depression. And they said she's a mother of 2 and she's probably better off being at home. And, my husband works in the public service. Mm-hmm. And they were excellent in terms of the support that they gave him. So they said because her husband can drive her to rehab, I was able to go home. But I had AIDS. I couldn't shower myself. My husband had to shower me because I couldn't lift my arms.
Oh, my goodness. You must have a very nice husband, do you?
I have the best husband.
Yes,
He's you don't, they say through sickness and in health. Yep. Well, he stepped up.
I've always thought that you really can't. You hear about people that meet someone and they're like, oh, it was so amazing. We talked all night. We've got so much in common. I'm like, you don't know anything until it's like 2:00 in the morning and you've got a baby and you're both vomiting and you've run out of nappies or you've had a disaster like that. Right. You don't actually know what the person is made of, do you?
No, that's
you
right.
You really don't.
But he is an absolute angel of a human being. So he looked after me and I went to rehab at Mount Wilga. With a lot of older people around me.
Yes.
Wow, that's an eye-opener. Stroke land. But to think that this was brought on by someone, not by a freak accident.
Chance of
and
nature,
seeing just how awful some of the recoveries of stroke are. I was one of the – I always say I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm one of the unluckiest people on the planet with what's happened, but I feel very fortunate about my recovery because it was – if you look at the statistics, it wasn't – I shouldn't be sitting here today with you.
I'm so glad you are. We're so appreciative of you telling this story because I spend so much of my time through my books that I've written, through this podcast, through the training that I do, trying to get the message across that science and medicine is evidence-based, and people have spent years and years and years and years to train in it. And then alternate medicine, alt-med, complementary medicine, one of the most famous skeptics in the world calls it scam because it's like so-called alternative medicine.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no evidence for it. The fact that people still came to you in that state and thought, try something natural is just astonishing to me, because this notion of natural being good, you know, cancer, brown bears and arsenic, they're all natural and they're all bad, and there's no testing on these things. They don't need to actually provide evidence. It's so dangerous. And tell me, how old were your kids first? Let's go to that. How old were your children?
My son was 10 and my daughter was 8.
And did they know what was going on?
I think my son really understood, like he would understand. And, you know, the challenge for them was, and I'm very lucky, my parents are amazing.
Wow.
They took the kids obviously for the 2 weeks, but they also watched my mum grieve quite loudly. You know, they could see the crying, they could see the trauma, because it's not just my life that had been impacted.
Of course.
What happened to us shocked everyone around us.
Right. So what was it like when you got home?
I remember being happy to be home, but I recall walking into the house and there was not one spare spot in the house for any more flowers. And I recall saying to my husband, feels like I've attended my own funeral. People had come out of the woodworks, but just the sheer amount of love. I recall feeling so grateful in that moment to know the people in my life and it wasn't about the flowers, but just the sentiments and the care, and the impact that you as an individual can have on people's lives. This shocked many, and a lot of my friends have vowed never to see a chiropractor, have even gone on to let their families and friends know don't see a chiropractor. The danger is real.
Yeah.
And it does happen.
Yeah, clearly it happens. And did you so just tell me something. So the friend of yours that recommended the chiropractor, what happened? Did that put a fracture in your friendship? What happened?
I'm certain there would have been, you know, she felt really bad. I know.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and you know, and no, not really a fracture as such, but it wasn't her fault.
Of course,
you know,
not.
She was offering support,
of course,
to say, hey, you know, this works for me, but unfortunately, it didn't work for me.
And tell me, did you go back? Have you gone back to the chiropractor? Did you tell the chiropractor?
Yeah. So when I was in hospital, I was in ICU. It was the same day, if not. Actually, yeah, it was the second day that I was admitted after they identified the stroke. And she reached out to me because I think my friend had told her. I can't quite remember how that eventuated. And she was asking me for GP details because she wanted to put in some claim, or I don't know what she needed it for. I think it had to do with her insurances. And I just remember I was like, I just can't. She wanted neurologist's name and GP name. Yeah. And in that moment, I didn't, I just wasn't well enough. So I ignored it.
Yes.
You know, so she knows what happened. I did reach out to her I think it was at the 2-year mark.
Yes.
And just said, I just wanted to let you know I'm all right. I'd love to have a coffee with you. And she's since no longer doing chiropractic. She's, moved to Queensland and a counsellor.
Okay. Counsellor for people who've had strokes. Okay. So, yeah, the problem is, I suppose, is the ubiquity of chiropractors and other alternate medicine providers, in that they're just in the environment, they're everywhere, and there's an assumption that what they do is safe.
No.
And that's not true.
Read the fine print. Absolutely not. And I think there's a reason science exists.
Yes, there
There's
is.
a reason the medical system is based on science and fact.
Yes.
They're the experts, not people who think they can solve. You always got to get to the core of what the problem is.
And I think because I know There are two streams of chiropractic, but the one that's the most dangerous is that subluxations in the spine cause all illness. That's what they think. And I was reading that chiropractic as a profession began in 1895 when its founder, Daniel David Palmer, adjusted the spine of a deaf janitor and claimed to restore his hearing. So I guess claimed is the word. And especially in the current environment that we exist in at the moment, pretty much you can just say anything you like without backing it up.
And getting away with it.
And just getting away with it. And social media, I think, has only exacerbated this problem that we have where you've got completely clueless people like influencers telling you can cure Crohn's disease by having a kale juice. I mean, it's just appalling, isn't it?
Shocking. It's absolutely shocking. But look, like I say, I got I'm the luckiest unlucky person.
Yeah.
And, you know, in hindsight, if I can get the message out there, everybody can make a decision for themselves.
Yeah.
But just read the fine print, because what I didn't realise, I kept being told, oh, what's happened to you is really rare. Well, all you have to do is join a support group for people with vertebral artery dissection and with cerebellar strokes and see how many of them are attributed to the same reason mine was.
It's clearly it's very, very problematic, and I think we've got to do everything that we can. As I call myself a science communicator, so I like to think I'm part of that environment where we're saying, forget the alternate medicine, talk to people who've gone to the trouble to go to university and study for years and years and years to learn what they do, not somebody with a weekend course, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Sarah, that was thank you so much. You're such a warm and wonderful person, and I'm so grateful for you coming on the podcast. Thank you so much. And just, you know, clearly, because you look amazing. You've completely recovered, right?
Yeah, look, there's a stroke recovery is a long-term thing. So there are times absolutely where you've got to manage your fatigue, or you might have a day where you might lose your balance. But all in all, I'd like to think that I'm at 98% recovery. I know the doctors are very pleased with how I have recovered, and, you know, while I'll be on some medication for life, if that's what I walked away with, then so be it. I'm feeling good, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story.
Yeah, and I'm very appreciative of you coming on. Thank you so much, Sarah. So there it is. Sarah is a very, very smart woman. None of this was her fault. She was simply unlucky. The Chiropractic Association has recently had the ban of adjusting babies' necks re-established. The AMA was appalled that the association had lifted the ban in the first place. So the message is this. This happened to a young, fit, healthy woman. If you want to have your neck adjusted, read the fine print. Really, really do it. It's taken Sarah years to recover. And in fact, she nearly didn't make it, and she has 2 little children. Please, don't let this be your story. At Why Smart Women, we're careful to avoid making generalised statements, as the truth is often nuanced and individual. Across every group of practitioners, you will find a spectrum of competence and integrity. My chiropractor has genuinely helped me with shoulders, back and knees. Smart women make better decisions when they weigh up the procedural risks and competence of their health professionals. Thanks for tuning into Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, in a car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together, we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.